The United States faces a multifaceted national security challenge that transcends traditional geopolitical threats from nations like Russia and Iran. Instead, a significant portion of this threat emanates directly from our southern neighbor, Mexico. The internal dynamics within Mexico, primarily dominated by drug cartels, have profound implications for U.S. national security, effectively placing the U.S. in an undeclared war with these Mexican criminal entities. Despite official rhetoric from Mexican leadership aiming to project an image of cooperation, the stark reality reveals a different scenario. The U.S. is currently witnessing an unprecedented surge in illegal immigration and an overwhelming influx of illegal drugs, most notably fentanyl, which not only perpetuates addiction, but also bolsters the operational capacity of these cartels on both sides of the border. The scope of the cartel's operations has alarmingly expanded, evolving from traditional drug trafficking to include sophisticated networks of human smuggling. This expansion has not only strained American social services and infrastructure to their limits, but has also compromised national security.
The cartels are a national security threat to this country. You're getting a fentanyl from China. You know, the precursors, they send it to the criminal cartels. The cartels make this poison and send it across the border. The border violence is now coming across into the United States. The criminal cartels in Mexico is like a Fortune 500 company.
They're back in all of our major cities. They are running human trafficking operations. That's where they start.
Millions of dollars in meth are running up and down our interstates, trafficked by dangerous drug kingpins from Mexico, and federal agents tell us they are seeing an increase in drug cartel activity here.
Grainy cell phone video shot by frightened tenants shows men fighting in common areas where children play. And gunshots fired at night. Examples of what life has been like at the Palatial Apartments.
Those calls include more than 140 calls for shots fired, several burglaries, and a dozen assaults in progress.
These cartels exert dominion over extensive regions in Mexico. A significant portion of this profit comes from remittances sent by illegal migrants back to their home countries, which now constitute a substantial segment of Central America's GDP.
So if $150 billion is leaving the U.S. each year, how much is being sent to the U.S. in remittances from Americans in other countries? Well, Americans residing abroad only sent home $6.6 billion in 2017, resulting in a net loss of $144.5 billion for the United States. That is almost 3 times the total trade deficit of the entire U.S. economy. Crazy, right? So where's all this money going? Turns out Mexico is the primary beneficiary, receiving just over $30 billion in 2017. China comes in second, receiving more than $16 billion in remittances from the U.S. each year. In the Northern Triangle countries of Central America, remittances from the U.S. are so significant that they are considered a major part of their gross domestic product, or GDP. U.S. remittances comprised an astounding 20.38% of the GDP in El Salvador, 18.8% in Honduras, and 11.2% in Guatemala. In other words, remittances to the Northern Triangle countries are keeping their economies afloat.
This financial flow raises a critical question. Is there a genuine intent from Mexico to curb this relentless influx? The economic leverage gained by these cartels through such remittances directly challenges U.S. sovereignty, effectively waging an indirect yet profound war on the stability, governance, and security of the United States. The political response from U.S. leadership has been largely inadequate or misaligned.
She's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
The President and I share a firm belief that our responsibility and our capacity is to give people a sense of hope.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come. My president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration and to help keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it. I'm restoring the program and asked Vice President Harris to lead our diplomatic effort to take care of this.
So I'm here in Guatemala to say, what can we do to support people and to give them a sense of hope that help is on the way?
The administration looking to inject billions of dollars in aid to this region to help reduce that migrant surge,
which can be interpreted as a form of capitulation. This inaction not only undermines national integrity, but also aligns with forces opposing the foundational principles of law and order in the U.S. The effects of this border dynamic are palpable even in affluent regions like Fairfax County, Virginia.
This week, the New York Post reported it had obtained a memo that specifically warns police in Virginia that the gang has come there and also has members living in D.C. The memo says the gang was allegedly connected to immigrants exploited into forced labor in, quote, Northwest Virginia. Now, as for the 3 suspected of stealing in Fairfax County, court records show all 3 had previous charges in New York, and all 3 were released in Virginia and then either didn't show up to court or violated pretrial release terms, and they are all listed as fugitives.
21-year-old Lemus Ramos punched an immigration and customs enforcement officer in the face on January 4th in Springfield, Virginia. This happened while Ramos was out on bond in Fairfax County, facing state charges for sexually abusing a minor and producing child pornography. The sheriff's deputies released Ramos from the Fairfax County Adult Detention Center, even though he was the subject of a federal immigration detainer.
Immigration is taking center stage in Fairfax as county leaders battle over spending money to help undocumented immigrants fight deportation. Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Peggy Fox tells us more.
The Fairfax County Board of Supervisors voted to help undocumented and illegal immigrants fight deportation. In its $4.4 billion budget voted on Tuesday, the board set aside $200,000 for a legal aid pilot program to help immigrants facing deportation proceedings.
Under extended Democratic governance, the area has seen a decline in living standards. Single-family homes are now often converted into makeshift boarding houses for illegal immigrants, with the cartels acting as de facto union bosses, leading to overcrowding and a diminished quality of life. The streets, once quiet, now resemble parking lots, with local law enforcement reduced to mere complaint handlers due to the overwhelming presence of illegal activities and the hesitancy of officers to serve in such environments. The transformation is not only infrastructural, but also cultural, with some neighborhoods beginning to mimic foreign territories due to the lack of immigrant assimilation. Schools in Fairfax County are struggling, functioning more as daycares for children of illegal immigrants, which contributes to broader societal dysfunction. This situation underscores a critical misstep in U.S. foreign and domestic policy, prioritizing economic trade with Mexico over safeguarding sovereignty. Allowing unchecked illegal immigration and drug trafficking has inadvertently handed power to criminal cartels, destabilizing our society. It's imperative for U.S. policy to undergo a rigorous reassessment to confront these threats effectively. The notion that this current state of affairs represents a new norm under the guise of immigration policy is not only misguided, but detrimental. The invasion by illegal immigrants facilitated by drug cartels must be addressed head-on. The U.S. needs to reaffirm its commitment to greatness through robust policy changes, rejecting the path of capitulation for one of decisive action. For those in governance who resist on behalf of these cartels under the pretense of supporting immigration, it's time to reconsider their roles, as their actions could be seen as betraying the very nation they're sworn to serve.